all connected on the other side. Like, always the worst thing for me is making sure it's actually connected.
It's about 15-second delay of like
Oh,
pure
well,
dread.
I hope 15 seconds because sometimes it's not, and then you absolutely freak out. So now I'm like waiting. It actually started. Is it? Is it? Play? Are we starting? We are. Okay, we're actually live, everyone. We did it. Oh, Jason, we did it. We are live. It actually worked. So do we want to wait just a little second for everyone to join? We've got 1,500 people signed up to this, so maybe we wait 2 seconds to let everyone just come in and join before we kick off.
Sounds good. I tell you what, it's nice to have like 3 people who have done hosting on this together. Normally, if you're hosting these things on your own, you're just kind of sat like twiddling your thumbs in these
Yeah,
moments. So we can do that
yeah.
together.
No, it's really nice. Usually we're the hosts and we're like, that's it. And this time we've actually also got a big part to actually talk and share, which I quite like as well. And I'm meeting Jason for the first time.
I know, this is wild. I abandoned Joe last time in lieu of Disneyland. So now, like, Joe gets to ditch out on a PromptMates Live and leave me solo at some point.
I mean, being at Disneyland feels like a good reason. Just saying.
Nice. Yeah, and it's weird too, Jesse, because like obviously we've interacted a ton on LinkedIn, right? But like when you finally get to meet somebody, it's always a little bit surreal. So I'm super stoked to be doing this with you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to do this with you guys as well. So why don't we kick it off? We've got about 120 people already there. I think people start to trail in. So I think we're going to kick this thing off. First of all, I'm going to say welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us for the State of HR and TA Tech 2026 webinar. It's brought to you by Joe and Jason from PromptMates, me, Jessie from Stakkd. And I'm really excited to be doing this with you guys, as I've just said. I think before we kick off into everything, it makes sense just to intro who we are because we've come from 2 different communities. We've brought you all together and maybe you don't know who we are. So, Joe, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and then we'll go to Jason.
Absolutely. Super excited to be collaborating, PromptMates and Stakkd. The logos look great together on the deck, so we're excited about today. Hey everyone, I'm Joe. I am one of the co-founders of PromptMates. The whole mission of PromptMates is to kind of make sense of this new wave of technology and tooling for both recruiting and HR professionals. We do online content and we also have a private community. And then I'm also AI advisor at a company called Scede, who offer recruitment services. So thinking about how they use AI across their business. That is me. I'll hand over to you, Jason.
Thanks. My name is Jason. I'm here in the States, in Austin, Texas. Super lucky to meet Joe a little over a year and a half ago and kick off this crazy experience that has been PromptMates. My day job is running people intelligence and AI for a cancer and genomics testing company out here called Natera. And like Joe said, just trying to let everybody know that for some reason AI decided to be scary for HR and TA first, and we like helping people avail some of those fears.
I love that. And who am I? I'm Jessie. I'm the founder of Stakkd, the HR technology database I hope you've heard of. And if you haven't, now you have. It's focused on the small to medium business market and helping you find and discover tech for your business. And I'm also the co-founder of a new company called Secureless AI. We scan the SaaS vendors externally and help you identify things to ask questions or where there might be security issues that you might want to flag with vendors before you purchase, or ones that in your team that do monitoring, scanning. We also help vendors make sure they close any gaps as well. So that's me. I also have like community stuff going on. I'm pretty present on LinkedIn, but overall, I'm just trying to help people find and trusted tech at the end of the day that actually works for them. So that being said, this session, we are going to look through the state of the market. We're looking at H and TA teams, what they actually are doing right now. We've had different surveys that we've done with the community from different perspectives. We bring that data all together. And we've also got data from the Stakkd database that we're also bringing in, as well as some broader market research. So a lot to get through in this session. But before we jump in, we have to do one thing, which is firstly, thank our partners for making this session possible today. So a quick shout out to Shapes, who is sponsor for today, alongside Greenhouse. They are HRIS built from the ground up on AI, meaning you kind of can go a little bit wild. You can get in there and kind of almost be an engineer and pull up your own reports and create things. You can vibe build things in there. It really does give you superpowers, and you can write things in plain English. It's basically totally different to most HRSs that you've seen to date. And they have AI agents handling like admin, so you can go in and finally do the job that you actually want to do and not do all the admin. So you should definitely go and check them out because they're pretty fun. They're a new kid on the block, but definitely one worth looking at. And we'll definitely link all of the things at the end of this as well for you to go and check out.
Awesome. We are big fans of Shapes over at PromptMates as well as Greenhouse, who are the hiring operating system for people first companies. Just want to very quickly talk about a couple of features. The first is relevant to the AI conversation, which is Real Talent. So Real Talent is Greenhouse's answer to application fraud. It's built on 3 pillars, which is AI talent matching, fraud and spam detection, and identity verification with Clear. We'll drop a link in the chat if you want to learn a little bit more about Real Talent. And the other feature is their MCP, which Jason is actually using, testing. Not sure exactly what stage you're in, but can tell us a bit more.
Yeah, no, massive shout out to Greenhouse. I think that they made a pretty decent sized splash with their new like V3 Harvest API. So a lot of us went out and built our own MCPs. And then they came out with a beta version of theirs, and it pains me to say this, but it's better than mine. So I've been loving using it. They really are kind of leaning into folks like us that want to be able to do anything we want with our data. So stay tuned. We're doing a lot of hard work on it, but eventually it'll be in more people's hands, and I'm super excited for it.
Okay, let's move on to the agenda for the session. So, as Jess mentioned, we've pulled data from a ton of different sources, including like doing quite a lot of our own research, but also gathering some market data and getting data out of the Stakkd platform as well. So, firstly, Jess is going to give us a quick run through of the market and like the overall tech ecosystem on kind of a macro level. And we'll then move a layer down into some of the strategic challenges that both recruiting and HR teams are facing around budget constraints and kind of forward-looking tech roadmaps. We'll then go a layer deeper, looking at AI adoption. So where are teams actually at and where do they think they're going to be over the next kind of 12, 18 months? We've got a quick section on security, which I'll be taking notes again from Jessie on that section. And then we'll wrap it all up with a summary and our key takeaways. So we will jump straight in and look at the market.
Thanks, Joe. I really love that overview because we've got so much to get through, and I just feel like everyone's going to leave being like, wow. So we're going to go straight into it. We're going to look at the current state of the tech ecosystem, starting with some data from Stakkd, the HR technology database that I launched in end 2024. So we've got about 389 products across 29 categories on the database, and we've had about 29,000 product views in the last, I think it's about 12 or so months. And 39% of the products in the database are founded in the last kind of 5-ish years. So I think you start to see the picture that there is a lot on the market, but also that they're also it's a very young market. A lot of the market for especially the small to medium business market, which is what the database is focused on. So if you think about outside of the enterprise market, there are so many tools flooding the market. And it's what people always come to me and it's like, so what do I do? Like there's so many products. You've got like 25 products in this category. What's the best one? And it really is hard. And I really do sympathize with everyone going through this whole process of, trying to understand where the market's at, what are the products they could be looking at. And so the database is comprehensive, but you've got to remember there is more than, these 400-ish products in there, and I think the fact that it's so young also leads to other questions that I think we'll have coming up when you have a young market, what that actually also means. And maybe next slide. Some of the data that the database shows is around where people are actually looking, so the buyer behavior. So when you're coming to Stakkd and you're looking through the database, what are people actually looking for? Well, they're looking for, I think this isn't wildly I don't think this is like wild data, right? I think it's confirming what we kind of know, and it's actually data that's validated throughout the session today through different mechanisms or different surveys that we've done. Buyers keep coming back to the core. People are genuinely searching for HRIS and ATS at the top. Then they're looking at AI operations, and then they're kind of looking around sourcing, comp, and talent management as the next two kind of categories of tech. I don't know if this matches in with what you're seeing, Joe, and what people are talking about, but it feels like it's validating what we know.
Yeah, I don't want to give too many spoilers away for later in the session, but like this comes up a few times, and I think this is important to validate. Like we're seeing a lot of innovation or like new solutions that are like very narrowly focused, and they
Mhm.
get a lot of attention and a lot of noise, and like they're cool, very exciting, and we should absolutely consider them. But like the core of the function and the core of the role like still happens on this one big piece of technology on the like HR side, the HRIS, on the recruiting side, the ATS. But interestingly, as we'll see later, like the next one below that is now this wave of like AI tooling, and these aren't necessarily narrow solutions. It's more general AI we're looking at as
Yeah,
like the new stack. So yeah, absolutely validates on both fronts.
Yeah, and I
yeah,
would
I
add
mean,
too, like you could send this to any VC, this slide, because I'll guarantee you, of all these 6 categories, sourcing is the one that get pitched the most, which
yeah,
is funny, right?
100%.
Because it's like the one that everybody thinks that they want, but here, I mean, it doesn't even cry. It doesn't even get the bronze on our list.
Well, and it's interesting because it has I think it's one of the categories on the database has the most products in it on my
Oh, I'm
database as
sure.
well. And I feel like it's maybe one of the inverted commas easiest to think about building. I don't know if that's the case, but I feel like everyone I've spoken to so many companies like, we're building a sourcing tool. And I'm like, oh my god, another one. It's not that they're not good, right? It's just there is a lot on the market. There is a lot of noise. And AI, since the day I put out this database, it's not even like questioned at this point. AI is the most filtered feature on the database from day one. It's continuously been number one. It basically outperforms like literally everything. People just they search for a category and then they go AI. So whatever I'm looking for with AI. And I think that starts to, tell the story, right? What are people actually looking for? It's quite interesting there.
Absolutely.
What have we got next? Yeah. So then we had a look at Crunchbase. So Crunchbase has a lot of the data around mergers and acquisitions across companies. So we had a look at that data, pulled it in, and we're seeing that there is roughly one HR tech acquisition every working day in the first half, like 2026 now. So we are seeing an uptick from like last year, that there's more acquisitions happening. It's accelerating. And we're seeing that, funnily enough, recruiting and sourcing are 31% of all the deals in that period. And TA is 62% of the deals in the last 12 months. So there is a lot of tech in that space, and there's a lot of tech being eaten up in that space. And I think that's where, we've seen even Greenhouse, they've bought Ezra AI, an interview AI interview tool. What am I saying? Then we've got, Workday, they've got Paradox and Sana, and then you've got SAP who got smart recruiters. So there's like lots of things happening and consolidating in the space where the bigger enterprise players are realizing people want AI. So it's not wild data again. I think it just validates what we're seeing and what we're feeling. And interesting on the TA front, I found that quite interesting that it's such a volume there.
Yeah, I think there has to be like some level of consolidation here. Like we're seeing like
Yeah.
a wide range of innovation, but as we'll see later, actually from some of your data, like Jesse, there's like these barriers to adopt the technology, like particularly in Europe, and we can't be jumping over those barriers for like 100 different solutions. Like there's going to need to be some consolidation, and we go to a small number of trusted vendors, which we build our stack with, versus like 100 having 100 different vendors in our stack. Like final point on sourcing, like not to say that sourcing isn't a massive challenge and these tools aren't important. Like they're very important and some of them are very cool. But like the point here is that it's probably not a long-term solution to use like 10 different platforms. There's going to need to be like some consolidation per category as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. I think the consolidation is gonna happen, and it already started to happen since I've founded the database. I've had companies close, I've had companies being acquired by bigger companies. So, you're just seeing it more and more, and this just data just, backs it up. So, yeah, it is again not fun to be on the side having to choose tech though. I mean, it does make selection quite difficult and knowing what to do next.
Yeah. Are you kind of talking about the death of the Franken stack almost, Joe? Like, I mean, there you go. You can brand it as such. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, you know this. Like, I literally last week wrote a PRD and took it to a vendor and was like, "Can you make this for me? Like, if you could do this for me, like, I would roll with you." And it's like that is so not something that I think we would have done even a year ago. Just the idea of like, yeah, I mean, I want one partner, two partners to ride with, as opposed to an entire posse like I have to roll with now.
Yeah, interesting. It is interesting where it's all going because at one point, it was there's so many point solutions, and you did have this very broad stack, right? Doing all these very expert parts of the HR and TA space. And now we're kind of seeing it kind of go, oh, it kind of expanded and now it's going, I think it's coming back in. But there's so much coming on the market still. So I wonder who's buying all these tools. Love to know.
Okay, shall we move on to strategic challenges? So we've got a few topics like within this category: budgets, constraints, and tech roadmaps. The first one like almost contradicts some of what we were just saying, but actually not all of it, in that actual tech stacks are lean, and we're moving to data here. We've gone out and we've surveyed both recruiting and HR function leaders, so people who are responsible for the budgets and run the team. And the majority of the teams we surveyed, which was a range of size from SMB through to enterprise, run on like 5 core tools or less. And so my takeaway here, and we'll see a little bit later, is actually this noise is external rather than internal. It's like paralysis of the other solutions I could have, almost like the grass is always greener on the outside, but internally, like there's not, or across most teams, there's not actually lots and lots of tools which they've adopted. Budgets, though, are not shrinking. Typically, most of them are staying even or growing, even when headcount isn't. So we're seeing it's basically every technology company spend quite a lot on AI and LLMs, and that's kind of true cross sector that people are actually looking to spend more on technology, even if they're not looking to hire more people. This was very consistent in HR teams, was slightly less consistent in TA teams, but some TA teams are spending a lot more or increasing their budgets a lot more than HR, so the volatility was higher. I would probably put this down to like the secular nature of hiring, right? If a company stops hiring, their TA team and TA budgets typically shrink first. Jason, I don't know if you have anything you would add to that.
Yeah, and I would also add to it too that like, I mean, it feels like knockdown, drag out, full contact recruiting again, right? And it's like, I think we had a little bit of a lull in that, but the top talent that everyone's going after is just as it's just as much lunacy today as when I was running it at Roblox and we were, paying king's ransoms for people. So I think that it makes sense that when you go to battle, you want the best arsenal to do so, right? So there are people that are spending a lot of money on some TA tooling, and TA tooling is learning how to charge token wise or usage wise. Like they've taken a note from the LLMs, right? And it's like, I think that probably expands the spend for at least some of the more advanced tooling.
So I'm just reading the chat. Some people are saying like even 5 tools is still too many. It'd be interesting. Like what do you think is the optimal amount of tools in the chat would be? Would be interesting to know.
Yeah, drop it in. That would actually be quite interesting. And also just on the budget thing, like when I was in HR, it was always like you didn't get, back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, like not even that long ago, you didn't get budget. It was really, really hard. And so it's interesting that even though headcount isn't getting budget, like budgets are staying the same or going up in the HR space, I think we're going to see more of that. Teams are expected to we're like, cool, we're not going to add people, but we're going to expect you to put in more tech to enable whatever it is that we need to get done. So I used to always want more budget, but it's interesting that it's going to probably mean that the hiring in our teams isn't, which was what we're seeing, means you're not going to hire as many people into your teams, which also is a question, just it always makes me think. I'm always like, oh, it's great to have more budget, but I also want people to have jobs. So it is interesting. It's always like paradox. Anyway.
Nice. And then, so this just following on is kind of validates what we were just saying, right? So like the noise on tooling is external, and Jess, you can talk about where this data comes from, but interestingly, like the number one challenge is selection paralysis. So almost too many options to choose from.
Yeah, so I have a survey for my community when people come into the community, and it's about almost 300 surveyed by now. And this is one of the questions I ask, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to, HR tech? And it's the selection paralysis is the number one thing. 39% of people saying that's where it's the hardest for them, and I can totally understand why. I mean, we know the market's completely flooded. It's completely messy. You've got all this pressure as well to use LLMs, and it also makes the decision harder when you're like, do I get a tool? Like, do I build it? I think that also feeds into a selection paralysis because like you can't select if you don't know if you should be selecting something or if you think you should be also potentially building something. And then you've also got the second top, which is 33%, is process and integration. So it's like that's also a big chunk. Like if you are buying something in, you're buying it, you're implementing it, it's a big thing. It's also a challenge. And then I wonder how much of that is easier when you build, right? Or the seemingly easier. I don't know if it is actually easier, but seemingly easier. And why companies and why teams are actually going for something that's a little bit easier to adopt because it's just this organic adoption that's happened with LLMs. It's less structured. Yeah, interesting.
No, super, super interesting points. And I think that a lot of that, both your top two, get messed with like recency bias, right? Like when you teach somebody how to build something, all of a sudden you've like, I heard somebody say once, actually, I think it was Dan McCarthy said it on a PromptMates Live, but that like if you give an engineer Claude code, you make their life easier. But if you give a non-engineer Claude code, you've opened up this like whole world of possibilities to them.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, with the selection paralysis, the build versus buy concept you're talking about is, I know even me a couple months ago was like, why would I pay for that if I can just build it myself? And then
Mhm.
what you get to is you miss. It is easier for the initial change management,
Mhm.
but support stinks. Like, and like I'm super guilty of that. Like, I built a neat little system inside Natera and I got tired of like updating the documents, right? And all it takes is one person to go search for medical benefits and have it be wrong, and then the whole system like conceptually fails.
Yeah.
So it is there is definitely an argument to buy as opposed to just build, but I think it's everybody's individualized choice.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say I'm more of a buy person because I've been part of like the transformations where, you roll it out and there's the maintenance. Like maintenance, like you said, sucks. Support like doing stuff to keep it working isn't fun.
Sure.
It's also very expensive, it's time consuming, and that's why, companies exist and do this as their entire job. And also I was talking to some people at a dinner the other week in TA, and they were saying, everyone's got Claude. We told them to experiment, and everyone's like building stuff, but they're building for their own use case. They didn't think about if it's scalable for the team. People are duplicating and building the same tool, but slightly differently. And they're actually getting people less productivity because people are like, kids in a candy shop. They're like, great, cool, let's
Totally.
build. This is fun. Like, let's spend time building cool stuff that is maybe helpful for that one little thing you're doing, but actually, is it overall for the team and the business the right thing to be working on in that moment, and is it the good ROI? There's so many things there. So I think that all adds into potentially also this whole, again, do I buy something and what do I buy when you've got this whole other world happening internally where people have got the pressure to use, any AI really, and optimize and experiment and just go for it. Yeah, it's
Totally.
interesting.
Yeah, there's a great discussion in the chat going on actually between Batman Recruiter, great YouTube handle, and Nuno, talking about like it's less about how many tools you have, but like what business problems are they solving and how do they talk to each other. Like you could have two tools that are incredibly inefficient in a process if they're not solving your challenges and they're not connected, or you could have, I think someone mentioned in the chat they got 7, 8, but they work in an incredibly efficient way. So 100% agree with that. Let's
Cool. I like this one. Call out from Vanessa too. The litmus test for build and versus buy. Do we have the skill and the will to maintain it? Good question. Do we want to be doing it, and do we have the skill to do it? That's a good one as well.
Totally. I just want to say too, if that Batman Recruiter's who I think it is, I've been on a call with that guy, and he totally leans into that branding. Like, I remember your background. Yeah, I remember your background and everything.
Nice. I 100% agree with with Ness, by the way, and great to have you watching this. Even just like very trivial example, but I was talking to Jess about building this site, and this is a vibe coded report, and the energy to do it at the start and the first 90% was like really exciting and went really quickly. And then I got to the last 5-10% of doing it, and it became a lot more tedious and took a lot more
And it's like
time. So
Jessie's voice notes back through MD files, sent through Slack, back and forward. Can we adjust this? Can we
yeah,
adjust
I guess the lesson here is like, think of what does your job look like in 12 months, because of this thing you've got to maintain is probably a good
Yeah,
test.
for sure. All right, this one's interesting. Most teams are actually missing a roadmap. Who would have thought? All the time when I came into my jobs in business in HR leadership, there was no roadmap anyway, and this was years ago. So this does not surprise me at all that most teams don't have a roadmap or don't know if they have one, so they don't know it exists. This was part of the survey for my community as well. I don't know if that's a bad. It's not good to have no plan. I think there needs to be some strategy behind everything. I'm much more of a structured approach, slow it down, let's think about this kind of person. But I do understand that there's a lot of velocity right now. Like, it's moving fast. There's a pressure as well. And I think that the planning stage people skip. It's easier to skip planning. It's easier not to have a plan. It's easier to just kind of hobble through it in the best way possible and being like nimble. But I do think there is a lack of. We're going to start seeing this kind of like, we're in the trough of disillusionment a little bit with AI. I think, if you think about the hype cycle, we're in the bottom at the moment. We start realizing that, oh, there's token cost, and oh, the ROI of this isn't what we thought, and oh, it's not as easy to, implement that thing into the broader business as we thought. And so not having those structured kind of roadmaps, I think, isn't a good idea. I understand why we're in that position, and I understand why we haven't done that in the past. I think it's just a lot more expensive mistake now not to have some kind of strategy and thought behind that and direction. Yeah, it's number one thing I do when I go into a team, if it doesn't exist, is I get a roadmap.
Yeah, I think I do. I definitely do agree. First and foremost, I will say, as like maybe the startup guy in the room, that I think we are in a time where you absolutely have to optimize for speed, and you can't move super slowly. Like, to an extent, we have to build the plane as we're flying it at the moment. But having just kicked off an AI transformation project at a company, like, we absolutely did build a plan. And the main part of the plan for us is, what do we want to achieve? Where do we want to go? We don't need to map out every single step of how we're going to do that, because if we do that, by the time we get to step number 4, everything will have changed anyway. And so, we had an idea on where we were sailing to, but we didn't necessarily take ages and ages doing that. I don't know. We got Jason at a publicly listed company, so he may tell me that's a ridiculous
We need
approach.
a plan.
Well, I
just
feel
wanna
like
call
not.
out that it wasn't the American guy that said that. Like, let's just go ahead and notice that. And yeah, I mean, Joe's right, dude. It's in a HIPAA compliant, publicly traded company, we are risk adverse. So what we do then is we do all our fun stuff in like extreme guardrailed sandboxes. Like, so I still get to do all the mad scientist stuff that I want to do. And, a lot of that PromptMates gets to see like artifacts of, which is kind of nice. But yeah, when things get put out into real usage, we could never do that without a plan. It's kind of funny too. Like, if you go back to the use of, say, Claude Code, the first time somebody uses planning mode in Claude Code, you have this moment of like, oh, I'm not just hitting go, 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 go. Like, it's actually thinking, and I can actually plan some things. I think we need to have more of that mentality with kind of all we're doing right now.
I think the upstream work becomes a lot more important when you're moving fast. Like, the preparation, because you're like, if I'm going to go in this direction, I'm going to go really fast in this direction. Got to be freaking sure you want to go in that direction. So I think a little bit of the planning and upfront makes a lot of sense. Again, I'm from a transformation background. Part of what you do is like, the planning step isn't skipped because it's going to kill you later. Going to pay for it later. So I'm definitely for having the direction. I definitely think these, really rigid maps, roadmaps aren't going to work either. So it's got to be appropriate for like what you're doing, the size of business you are, but also what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. Definitely a planning person though.
All right, this is the slide I've been waiting to talk about. So first off, I want to call out that, like, of all the data gathering we got, like this was the one that over 1,000 people specifically replied to. So this is, one of the more, I would say, robust data sets that we have. And, it's just the idea of like, where am I stuck? Like, where am I challenged to scale? And if you look at this first one, it was nearly half. So, I mean, we're talking 450-ish plus people connecting AI tools to existing workflows in the tech stack, building automations and agents, and scaling experiments to repeatable processes. That's kind of everything Jessie just said on the last slide too. It's this idea, right, of like we've learned these new skills, we've got these new tools, we've got these new toys. Now, like, how do we actually do something with them? And we just did this thing at Natera where we took the entire TA team and we put them through a 6-week training cohort to make them AI native, and it was awesome. I mean, like we spent a lot of really good time and kind of met everybody where they were and took them to where they are today. But now what I get a lot of is like, well, can I hook up ChatGPT to Greenhouse and have it do this? Or like, I wish that like, that LinkedIn could talk to Gemini. Like now everybody's thinking this way of like, I want to connect these new powers that I got with these like existing systems that I have. And like, unfortunately, that's just not there yet. And I think that kind of maps down into the further ones too, is like, how do I connect it? Once I connect it, like, how do I do it right? How do I do it responsibly and safe? And how do I not put PII into, public LLMs and those sorts of things? Building capability, I think, comes with, you just got to do it. It's a change management effort. Like, you have to step in, help people. You got to understand where they're at. You got to make it a safe place. I mean, some of the questions that I got asked in doing that, kudos to the people that asked them. They're brave questions, and they asked them on a one-on-one Slack channel basis, but like you could tell they really wanted to learn. And then cutting through the noise, like I get to talk to almost everybody that joins PromptMates. We're about 200 people all in now, a little over that. So I've talked with well over 150 people as they've come into the community. And noise is probably one of the scarier things. Is this idea of like, where do I start? And it's kind of where I go back to the idea of like, literally being on this call, you're in the right place. Like most of you are using more. I think I might be still on a slide from the future. But I mean, more of you are using AI than you think you are right now. And just, don't get too concerned with it. You're already in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely agree. My take on this is very similar. Effectively, those bottom two, so like building capability, cutting through the noise, are more, where do I start with AI? Like I'm don't know where to start, don't know what to do. And then the top two are kind of like a bit of a broader signal on where I think where we're at with AI adoption, which we'll get to, which is, okay, I've played around with AI, and the kind of question is like, now what? Like maybe I've built some things, maybe some things have worked, some things haven't, but we're potentially moving like in some verticals, and I think this is very different on use case to use case, past the like initial experimentation phase into what you may call a slightly less exciting phase on like governance, consolidation, realizing, okay, not every single person needs to build for every use case. Probably everybody needs to be good at interacting with AI, but we all don't need to be able to build kind of scalable and deployable solutions. And yeah, maybe jumping ahead a little bit here, Jess, I don't know if you had anything to add on this.
No, I think the scalability challenge is the challenge, right? That is because you don't get business value without scaling it into business and implementing it properly. And so I think that's exactly the place that we need to that needs the energy. And that's why I think this upfront work and this, where are we going? What does the business need? What is the most impactful use case to actually work on and scale through the team? Now that we've done all this experimentation, is where we need to be going, because we're not going to have unlimited tokens forever. Cost of AI will go up as well, and businesses will start going, oh, I don't think we should be doing all of that, right? So I do agree 100% that we're kind of moving a step. I also have to say we probably are in a very tech forward bubble in our communities, and that's because that's what we do. The people who are naturally drawn to this and want to, move into that space and operate in this way are the people who join these kind of community sessions, are the people who interact with us. I do see a big disparity in a lot of the people that I talk to outside of my initial, like, immediate community, that, they don't know what some of these tools are still. They don't know how they work. They haven't used them before, and they are still really at like step one. So I think we are in different phases in generally in the industry, but also with maturity and where we're at. And I think some of the bigger companies are doing the slower approach versus the more nimble startups, AI first startups, which are like go, go, go. But at the end of the day, if we can't scale it and we can't make it like cost effective, then it doesn't help the business, right? Even if it's fun. So that's where we're going to start seeing, I think, a lot more of our measurement metrics in return on investment space for sure.
No,
And it's what
100%, dude.
people obviously want to do, right? You can see from the survey, people want to convert that. They want to be able to deliver on that. Yeah.
100%. I hit, for the first time ever, I hit the Gemini like token timeout yesterday because now it pained me. I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be unlimited, Gemini. Like you're the one I can go to no matter what. So yeah, no, you're right. Like the reckoning is coming, and we need to really focus on ROI.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I saw Kevin put something in the chat on cost actually, and I think I do agree. AI costs should actually go down generally. Like it should be cheaper to make. Compute should get cheaper over time, but everything is on a massive discount at the same time and being backed by external funding. So that feels like slightly uncertain to me, and I don't know if we can certainly say it's gonna be quite linear in how it happens. Some other great chat, Eric, Ness, and Ryan talking about, I'd say the summary there is like maybe people running before they walk, going move fast and break things, and then actually figuring out this is something we need to be more thoughtful about on building entire workflows. Enjoying the chat today. Cool. AI adoption then. So this part we really wanted to deep dive as much as we could on where our recruiting and HR teams out on their AI adoption journey and what are the things they're kind of thinking about over the next 12 months. One caveat here is like we've done some splicing of the data, so we'll look at geographies and a little bit on team sizes, but of course we've had to make some generalizations throughout. So one of the headline stats, and we've already been talking about it throughout this session, but the majority of teams are building directly on LLMs. This probably feels obvious to most of us, and most of us are interacting. Certainly, again, the people on this call are probably likely interacting with this category of tooling every day. But I think this is really important to talk about on a macro trends. Like this is a whole wave of tooling, which is now core to our stack. That we didn't use a few years ago and isn't actually built for our vertical. And when we look at where AI has been used across both recruiting and HR, actually the majority of AI use happens in general AI tools. So LLMs, we're talking here, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, etc. This is by far the majority of currently where AI use gets done. And as we move like down this list, it's like a mix between the general AI tools and specialist tools, and then further down, leaning more towards the specialist tools. Would love to get a quick sense check from you both, Jess, Jason. Do you think this is what the next 12 months look like, or will it go even further to the general AI tool as we build more embedded workflows on something like a Claude or automation tools? Or actually, will it go the other way where we're going to say, okay, these big core pieces of software like the HRIS, ATS, or like different sourcing tools as they get wider, more of our AI work will happen there as they continue to kind of develop and ship features. What do we think?
I mean, I'm gonna go admit that I'm living in Jessie's echo chamber, right? So like, the people that we talk to, I personally believe you're going to start to see one of two things happen. You're either going to see people live more in the general AI tools that are connected to the traditional enterprise systems via MCPs and such, or you're going to see those traditional enterprise systems like your ATS be the conduit via MCPs to all the other systems. So my gut tells me you're going to start to see people kind of have their Jarvis in some way, shape, or form. But I can't tell you who it's going to be, right? Like, I mean, we've seen stuff in PromptMates, right, where I'm like, I never want to leave Claude. And then somebody else pops up and it's like, I got Ashby to do everything. And then somebody else pops up and it's like, but MetaView does it all. Like, I think we're all going to have the ability to choose our favorite system, and hopefully be able to interoperate that way.
Yeah. I mean, 100% we're in an echo chamber, right? So like I full well know that there's many companies, especially in the more enterprise space, that are obviously not going to just be having as much access to the general LLMs as like some of the other companies. Or maybe it's not even based on enterprise size or whatever. It's also based on company risk and company appetite for this kind of thing. But when it comes to what we're going to see, I think we're going to go, it'll be company risk and budget pressure. We'll move into this compliance and budgetary structured space where we go, right, it's fun. I don't really care what you use as long as we're getting ROI and it's safe and we go through all the steps for compliance and risk. So I think if the LLMs can cover those questions and the businesses are happy with that, we will see more use of that. And I think that's where but then you have the question of ROI, which is where the build versus buy, the maintenance comes in, right? I think LLMs will always be part of it, but they will be for like, I think the use cases that are coming up. Where are people using it now? The chatting, the this, the that, the quick artifacts that aren't like the entire company built on it, right? Like you're not going to have your HRIS and your ATS built by like Claude code and like maintain that. Like that would be silly to spend your time doing that. When your core job is not to do that, right? If that's your business is to build Ashby, then your business is to build Ashby, right? But when your business is not to build an Ashby or a greenhouse or a shapes or what any of these tools are, then buying actually might be the ROI that the company decides to go with rather than an LLM that like does this. So I think we're going to see this strategic layer on top of all these programs, which is probably what Joe's going to see and is seeing with his AI transformation that he's like working on. You start to see that, okay, you've got to be strategic, you've got to do a bit of upfront work, you've got to work out where the ROI is before you like just full speed ahead. So that's where I think it's going to go. The combination of those things and budget and return is going to decide where we go with that. And I have a feeling that build is going to be still on the market for a while, for those reasons, especially around maintenance, but also compliance, a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, we're making bets here, and like we're predicting. I think I largely agree with both of you. My money would be on we over a long term have potentially gone too far the other way, where like this is much too big of a number. Not that we won't use this like wave of tooling. I think this is going to be a core part of our stack going forward. But I think when the dust settles, we'll actually be more around option 3, where it's like an equal mix of both. And for exactly the reasons you mentioned, some of the big scary things to build, which people are building at the moment, actually there's probably going to be a specialist which does a really great job of that. For the small things like building a survey or like just tweaking an email or some parts of the onboarding experience, like you're going to be able to maybe do that better and tailor it yourself with the LLMs. And I think it will vary a lot by use case. But just to like really highlight where the stack is at now, we surveyed the TA and HR leaders, and the question here is like, if you could only keep one category of tooling right now, what would it be? And this links back to the data that Jessie presented at the start, where like still the number one is this one big piece of software. So your ATS, HRIS, depending on the vertical. But then actually the number 2 category of tooling was your general AI tool. And so despite some of the things we just said, like I think this is here to stick around. And my key takeaway here is there's different ways you interact with this tool. Like it's not built for you, and therefore it's a skill. You need to learn how to interact with it. There are very unequal returns in terms of the outputs you can get. You can get very poor outputs. If you know how to use it, you can get very strong outputs. And of course, we see like the folks who are building on the LLMs have more AI assisted work and report a little bit more productivity on that side of things. Anyone, anything to add on that?
Yeah, this one kind of stuck with me, dude, because like like I built a 20-year career with never knowing what AI was. So like naturally I think to myself, like if you were going to take one of these things away, like which one would I want? Of course I'd want my ATS and HRIS. But like being real honest, going to Disneyland for 8 days without my digital twin pained me. So like I don't even know like how I could live without Gen AI now. So I mean, if I'm, to Jesse's point around like compliance and like mitigating risk and not wanting to be sued and those sorts of things, I think logically, like I'd want a big partner with an ATS or an HRIS to be there with me. But like I feel like I would be more debilitated today if you took away AI from me. But that might be the extreme, my internal echo chamber, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's become quite emotional. Like people do
Totally.
chat with these LLMs like it's a buddy, like it's a and like you can kind of clone yourself. Like my tone of voice, how I write, how I think, how I do things, I'm pulling this all into skills so I can like triple my output. I'm building 3 businesses with, basically myself and one other person, not because we have an army of, people in our teams, but because we're using AI and leveraging it, right? So I can 100% see why people wouldn't want to lose that ability because you feel like you have superpowers and you've got so much more capacity, and it extends your ability. I think that's why it'll be hard for people that's why people don't wanna lose it, 'cause there's a certain emotional connection to it somehow. I mean, people even have, like, companions, like, with AI now,
Sure.
you know? So it is an emotional thing, so I think the fact that people don't wanna let go of it makes sense. I do think we're gonna have to it's gonna be a mix. It's always gonna be an existing, it's gonna be another tool in the stack. I don't think it's gonna be all and end all, and it's not gonna wipe out every single SaaS product out there. But it will change, and is changing how we interact on the day to day and how we use the tools day to day. And I think that's the next slide, right? Is like how people are actually using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can look at use cases a little here. So um, I think that the headline kind of sums this up, that AI adoption is wide but shallow. So you can see the headline number: 74% of teams are using up to 25% or up to 25% of their tasks are AI assisted. I will say I split this data out even further when I was building the report, and this leans more towards the lower end of that range than the higher end of that range. But then when we look at tasks, you can see like what's the adoption rate across the kind of different broad category of tasks, and we pick tasks which are kind of relevant to both across both recruiting and HR here. And I think these map like quite nicely from at the top, like the easiest and the least complex, certainly in terms of like using AI and LLMs, through to like more complex and scheduling is always a pain point and is slightly more complicated to solve. Anything else, anyone? I think that's pretty.
No, but I think this what this just shows is that, like, research, writing comms, data and reporting, these aren't necessarily this isn't an entire tool. These are, like, outputs, like, helping me to get an output quick, right? They're not the data source, they're not the whole end-to-end workflow, they're not every other stakeholder's interaction with you. They're like, "How do I do my bit faster?" versus, "How do I, completely replace the entire, like, workflow and ways in which we work?" So I think this is where people start. It's the easier individual use cases where you can really be fast. Um, so that makes sense to me to see it like this. But I also think that's why we're not gonna just lose that core, buy stack that we have to have in the business, um, anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, and if you consider something like a Whisper Flow an AI tool, which I mean it is,
I love
and
it,
then
by
you
the
go
way.
to like writing and comms. I mean, like I have a foot pedal now, like more than I type. Like, I mean, so it's really gotten to the point to where, yeah, I mean, it's not you're replacing even things such as like typing on a keyboard and these sorts of things now.
Yeah,
just
I love
just
I love Whisperflow. I
just
absolutely love it.
Totally.
Like, not
I've
a
told Joe, I was
non-affiliate,
like, can you please get a pylon like sponsorship for us? It's like the only company I've ever called out for.
but
right? Same.
just to not like skip over what you just said. So like you have a foot pedal under your desk that you put your foot on when you want to type, and you just like speak things out, and then you take your foot off again when you're done. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and by the way, I didn't come up with that. Like Nolan Church gave me that tip, and
So
like
great.
tons of people. Yeah,
Wild.
trust me. Try and find one that can ship same day on Amazon, and you'll realize how good Pylon has been for the USB foot pedal industry, dude.
I feel like I need this. I'm always just pressing like my function key on the board, and I'm always like tapping it, and I'm always saying to like my husband who's in the room or my kid, I'm like, I've got to talk to Claude. And I'm like talking to it, and my husband's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "Talking to Claude, okay, just
Yeah.
getting my thoughts out, you know." Like it's crazy how different I work now than even like a year ago.
I mean,
Uh,
look, I'm not making it up. It's literally plugged in.
Oh my god, you
Like,
actually
yeah,
have power. But this, I mean, this is just showing that like the way we're working, the way we use AI tooling, and like Flow is not an LLM, right? It is an AI tool that has been, and it is like it's a product you can buy. Again, buy, not build. You know,
yeah.
there are tools that are going to be in our stack that aren't. It's just going to look different, I think, over time. But we're not going to lose this. We are going to need vendors still. We are going to need this kind of tooling, and we're going to use it in interesting ways. And I do think the writing and comms is like the easiest thing everyone can like attach to show how useful it is for that kind of work.
All right, should we have a look at kind of the next wave of what
Yeah.
people are thinking about over kind of the next, this is 12 to 18 months. And this is a question I do get asked a little bit, which is like, what should I be doing with agents? And this is like the number one thing that people en masse aren't necessarily doing or adopting yet, but it's on, I guess, for those people who do have a roadmap, or if not a roadmap, have some kind of plan over the next couple of years, is agents is something that they're looking at or planning to adopt in the future, but aren't already. The interesting thing on when we looked at like the correlation between a couple of different responses here is that this is sequential. People don't jump to agents first. So people who have adopted agents have already like built scalable workflows on kind of their general AI tools, on their LLMs across their existing stack, and have then moved to agents. There was very few, I think even 0 people across the hundreds that we surveyed that hadn't kind of like discovered some other scalable workflows that had ROI, were maybe on the more basic end before moving to agents. And then of course the people who have adopted agents have 3.1 times more AI assisted tasks than the ones that don't. So this is probably going to be the next big step change that we're looking at. Any thoughts on agents, guys?
Yeah, I think it's a mature step. Like you said, it's not where people start. It is the mature step. And I think our, again, echo chamber is going to be a far further along that journey. I mean, even for myself, I'm always like thinking, do I want to like do this? Do I want to have it as autonomous? Where am I going to put? I'm always thinking about like, where do I want to have the checks? That's the main thing for me when I'm building agents. Like, where do I want the human in the loop is always where I start with. Um, so I think, yeah, it is a mature concept. I can see why people like move up on the scale of where they're at. But again, I think in a business, that's becomes part of your infrastructure. If it's not just for your own little like individual stuff, and if it's like moving across like other people, then it again, it's infrastructure that you're building in. So it has to be, thought through.
Totally.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've made this joke before, but it's like the F1 analogy, right? Like you can build the world's fastest race car, but if you don't know how to drive, like you're not going to go anywhere. And the idea of like just hopping directly into agents is, it's attractive, right? It's like, oh, I don't have to do, I'll give you a funny agent story. So, um, I'm, do you want to talk about personalization, Jesse? Like, I've been trying to train my twin to understand my mood based on like the load of meetings I've had 3 hours before I interact with it, and like how I go back and forth with it. So it's like if I'm grumpy and like I haven't had lunch and I'm snippy, then like don't ask me big questions. It worked great until it decided to take load off me and auto reply to a bunch of chats for me. And then like people were coming back to me and they're like, oh my God, I'm so excited that, we're going to talk about this. I asked you about it a month ago and you never got back to me. And I was like, easy, Tiger. Like clearly, like I didn't want to talk to this guy about this thing from a month ago, but my agent, my buddy decided to like be proactive. So it was one of those moments to where you can go too far, right? And
Yeah.
we've all heard the stories of like dudes with like open claw that are getting calls in the middle of the night on WhatsApp, like because their open claw wants more tokens. I want people to understand like those are horror stories of agents, but like getting to the point to where every morning something looks and there's comments here, about like what can I make an agent do? An agent that every morning looks at your calendar, your emails, whatever interviews you had from the day before that you didn't put feedback in, and just gives you, sort of an executive brief of your day. Like that is a highly effective, personalized agent that can help you. So graduate into your agent scheduling meetings for you that you didn't want, but like start just learning how to kind of do the basics with LLMs and then take that into a really simple agent would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think this links to what Ness said in the chat earlier, and we were lucky to spend some time with Annika, Chief People Officer at Statista a few weeks ago, and it's exactly that. Like, you don't start necessarily with the agents and like we're going to adopt agents. You start with like even on a higher level, like what's the team structure? What are the tasks we want our people to do? What are the tasks we want agents to do? And then on the specific like workflow, like exactly what is the work we want agents to do versus setting them wild with your credit card as a crazy example. Let's move on and talk about the confidence gap. And I will definitely let Jason take this because as well as the data we've got here, you've got like hundreds of anecdotal data points you can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks for itself that everybody feels they're behind. I feel I'm behind. Joe, you and I talk about how we're behind. Like, I mean, we do PromptMates lives with people who absolutely rock it, and then we turn off and we're on Riverside, and they're like, "Oh my god, like I feel like I'm behind." Like, fact of the matter is, like everybody feels that way. I mean, Joe and I get real lucky, and we get to talk to. I mean, I've talked to dudes that are using F1, like that are working for F1 teams using AI, and they're feeling like they're behind. I mean, like the fact of the matter is, like we're all figuring this stuff out together, right? And don't underestimate yourself. Like everything that you've created that you've abandoned, or everything that you've made that you've been afraid to show somebody else, or a custom GPT that one other person at your company uses, like you're not behind. You're in the right place, but you also can't stall out. Like keep pushing, I guess is my takeaway.
Yeah, I agree. I think also I find in Europe, especially here in Germany, people feel like they're even more behind because there are more compliance constraints, and that's also the data here on the slide from the community survey that I did. Um, More so people have, the blocker to, selection of tooling and getting things in is more on the compliance side in Europe. There is more people finding that as a challenge or a blocker for them versus North America, who reported less so, which I think we can kind of, we get that vibe anyway. This kind of data just backs it up. And I think the compliance piece is something that, in the security part, people do stop and question here a little bit more maybe than in other parts of the world. And maybe that leads into the next slide, Joe, um, around security. So I mentioned at the beginning, I'm also a founder of a new company called Secureless AI, and we actually did a case study. So we scanned 50 HR tech vendors to see their rating, and the average was a C. Now, what we do is we look externally. There's no like probing. There's no like going into anything. It's all external. It's all what you can see from like a browser, and our AI goes in and tries to find, if it's secure or not, and if, there's GDPR issues and things like that that we can see from the outside. And yeah, these are like funded, long-standing vendors. They're not even like, companies that have come on the market necessarily recently. And so what that kind of flags for me when we did this was there is a security and compliance challenge when it comes to, selecting tech. And I just highlight this because it's becoming one of the top risks worldwide. Like in general, cyber is a big threat, but then also in the people space because of the data that we have in our systems. And I think that this comes to the point of like, building your own apps, vibing. If companies that are long-standing and have the funds and have been there for a long time have security teams also don't have, their security necessarily as good as we'd love to see it, then imagine if we're just doing it on the side, right? So this is why I thought it was important to share, but also we're, making it possible for people to scan companies, to find, to help them ask the right questions, when it comes to selecting vendors through that kind of, when you do that infosec check, when you go to the security team and say, "Can we have this tool?" It helps you to understand what, the questions you could ask those vendors and where they maybe stand with their external security. But yeah, when you're vibing, just be careful. Be careful. Because I tell you what, there's a lot more possibilities now with AI to get in. And so we need to be able to find the holes and fix them too. So yeah, pretty crazy.
Every time Claude Code tells you to drop in that API token, you got to tell it no. Don't
Think
let
about
it.
it. Think about it. Don't just listen to it. Also, like, yeah, just, people, you've heard of people, like they put up data on websites, and then they can, you can get in and you can kind of like, you can basically get in. Like, there's so many ways to get in now, right? Like, and the data, you're just pulling it out and putting it somewhere insecure potentially. So, I think this year, I think it was called the year of SaaS breaches is what it was called. So I think we just, be mindful what you're doing with data, where you're putting it, what kind of apps you're building, and what kind of tools you're also bringing into an organization. Ask the right questions. But yeah, we can go on, John. Joe, sorry.
Nice. Super useful section.
Cool.
I think we're pretty much through it. So we can wrap up. A few takeaways.
Yeah, takeaways. I mean, that was a good session. We're 1 minute over, so I'll keep it short. But I mean, the key takeaways here, you're further along than you think. I think we've already touched on that. Like there is there is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of hype. But I mean, if you're hearing this call, you're already ahead, firstly. Secondly, if you're in this community in general, you're probably ahead. And keep yourself curious, I think, is the main thing here. Like, be curious, be active, help yourself. Don't always rely on your company to, do it for you. Definitely, leverage the communities that are around and help yourself with this journey. Number two, build from your core tooling. I mean, I think we've kind of made our point there. You want to have good core foundations, and that is where everyone says that that's where their tooling is. That's what they're looking for, and we want to be leaning on LLMs where they genuinely fit for the purpose, right? And then, of course, number three, we just mentioned it, don't skip security and compliance. It is the easiest thing to do. It is boring. It is not sexy at all, but it is definitely not fun if it's your data that's being leaked or your company that's having a breach. So, always think about it. This is it's all fun and games until, someone gets breached. But hopefully those three takeaways, sum up what we've been talking about today. For everyone, anything to add?
I definitely want that as a soundbite, by the way. It's all fun until somebody gets breached.
Quote of the day. Awesome. I know we're over, so I'll run through a very quick wrap up with a few thank yous. First, thank you to the people who joined, and in particular, like the folks in the chat. It's been like really interesting reading through and getting people's thoughts as we've been going, and there's been a ton of engagement. So we appreciate you all joining. Jason, Jessie, of course, appreciate collabing with you both. All of our LinkedIns are here, and we'll send this full report out to everyone. I think tomorrow, Jess will send it out. Of course, thank you to our sponsors. There's been a lot of work pulling this together, so we really appreciate their support, both Shapes and Greenhouse. Of course, check out our companies, PromptMates and Stakkd, if you're interested in learning more. And at the bottom here, you can see all of the different kind of research and data points we pulled in today. And I think also, maybe over promising here, Jess, but I think if not tomorrow, you're sending out some different insights and stuff from your platform as well, right?
Yeah, in about a week or so, we'll have a full Stakkd Insights report and a whole rebuild of Stakkd, so Stakkd 2.0 as well, which you'll be able to find on stakkd.tech. But yeah, that's it, guys, wrapping it up. Thank you so much. This was fun. We appreciate everyone who joined. So we'll close it out here. Joe, Jason, until next time, thank you, everybody.
Bye all.
Everyone.